Another important topic under methodology is sample. In this lesson video, we will cover the nature of sample, how to get the number of samples to be used in your research study, and the different sampling techniques. Let us review first the different parts of Chapter 3, Methodology. The first part is research design, sample, instrumentation, research procedure, and data analysis. Today, we will focus our discussion on sample. What is sample? Sample is a selection of respondents for a research study to represent the total population. If you still remember in statistics, sample is denoted by small letter n, while population is denoted by capital letter N. What is the difference between sample and population? Population consists of the total elements about which you can make inferences based on the gathered data from a determined sample size. In short, sample is a subset of a population. Each member of a population who can provide information for the population is called element. One way to get the number of samples in research is through the use of the Slovin's formula. Slovin's formula is sample equals to the population over 1 plus population times the square of the margin of error. We already know what is sample and what is population. How about the margin of error? The margin of error is the allowable error margin in research. Take note that a confidence interval of 95% gives a margin of error of 5%. A 98% gives a margin of error of 2%. And a 99% confidence interval gives a 1% margin of error. Example: a study on the differences in stress levels between junior and senior high school students. Let's say the population of junior high school and senior high school is equal to 950. What is the required sample size with a 3% margin of error? We will substitute the given in the Slovin's formula. Sample is equal to 950 over 1 plus 950 times the square of 0.03. Get the square of 0.03, that is 0.0009. Then multiply it to 950. You will get this time 0.855. Add 1 to 0.855 and you will get 1.855. Finally, divide 950 by 1.855. You will get 512.13. Round to the next higher number. Sample now is equal to 513. It means that we need 513 samples out of 950 to get a 97% confidence level. This time, let us change the margin of error to 5% or 0.05. Using the same value for population, we will get a sample of 282. Remember that when we use 3% margin of error, the computed value of sample is 513, while a 5% margin of error gives 282. Too early to conclude. Let's have another computation. Let's say our margin of error this time is 10% or zero point 0.1. The computed value for sample is 91. Summarizing the results of the computations, what did you notice? You are right. As the margin of error increases, the value of sample decreases. It means to say, if the researcher likes a more accurate results of his study, he needs to use more samples. After finding the number of samples who will participate in the study, the next step is choosing these samples from the population. This time, let's talk about sampling. Sampling is the process whereby a researcher chooses his or her sample. There are two kinds of sampling, probability and non-probability sampling. Probability sampling is when all members of the population are given a chance of being selected. This is also called scientific sampling. While in non-probability sampling, members do not have an equal chance of being selected as samples. There are cases in which a sample is given priority instead of other members. This is also called non-scientific sampling. The first type of probability sampling is simple random sampling. Simple random sampling is a sampling technique where every item in the population has an even chance and likelihood of being selected in the sample. This sampling technique is also sometimes known as a method of chances. The second type of probability sampling is stratified random sampling. This technique divides the elements of the population into small subgroups or strata based on the similarity in such a way that the elements within the group are homogeneous and heterogeneous among the other subgroups formed. And then the elements are randomly selected from each of these strata. We need to have prior information about the population to create subgroups. This sampling method is also called random quota sampling. The third under probability sampling is cluster random sampling. Our entire population is divided into clusters or sections, and then the clusters are randomly selected. All the elements of the cluster are used for sampling. Clusters are identified using details such as age, sex, location, and others. Systematic random sampling. The selection of elements is systematic and not random, except the first element. Elements of a sample are chosen at regular intervals of population. All the elements are put together in a sequence first, where each element has the equal chance of being selected. The last in probability sampling is multi-stage sampling. It is the combination of one or more probability sampling methods. Non-probability sampling. The first type is convenience sampling. Convenience sampling is also called availability sampling. It is used to create sample as per ease of access, readiness to be a part of the sample, availability at a given time slot, or any other practical specifications of a particular element. The second type of non-probability sampling is quota sampling. Quota sampling is a method in which researchers can form a sample involving individuals that represent a population and are chosen according to traits or qualities. The third in non-probability sampling is purposive sampling. Purposive sampling, or judgmental sampling, or sometimes authoritative sampling, is a non-probability sampling technique in which the sample members are chosen only on the basis of the researcher's knowledge and judgment. The last in non-probability sampling is the snowball sampling. This technique is used in the situations where the population is completely unknown and rare. Here, the researcher takes the help from the first element which he selects from the population and asks him to recommend other elements who will fit the description of the sample needed. So this referral techniques goes on, increasing the size of population like a snowball. Before we end, let us summarize what we discussed today. Sample is the group of individuals who will participate in your study. To determine the value of sample, we use the Slovin's formula. That is, sample equals to the population over 1 plus population times the squared of margin of error. Sampling is the process of selecting the sample from a population. Sampling methods are characterized into two distinct approaches: probability sampling and non-probability sampling. Probability sampling can be further classified into 5 distinct types of sample. They are simple random, stratified, cluster, systematic, and multi-stage sampling. We can classify non-probability sampling into 4 distinct types of samples. They are convenience, quota, purposive, and snowball sampling. That's all for today. I hope to see you again in the next lesson video. Happy learning!